Welcome friends, Patrina here with Homegrown Florida. Are you wondering what to plant in your garden this September? Well, stick around because I'm going to share with you what vegetables you can start, the projects I have going on, and one special tip that will help you get the most out of your garden. Just as a reminder, I am located in Zone 9A, Central Florida on the West Nature Coast. If you're in South Florida, this video will give you a little bit of a head start since you guys are about 2 to 4 weeks after my planting dates. And if you're in North Florida, you're about 2 to 4 weeks before me. So this is your last chance reminder to get some things in before you miss that window. So let's get started and make this the best gardening season yet. My summer plants are still going really strong, and these are the plants that we have been neglecting all summer long. I can start to see the end of the road for some of these, like the cowpeas, the lima beans, and the Thai soldier beans. But there are several summer plants that are going to be around a lot longer than what I normally allow them to be. For example, I'm planning on letting the loofah, the sweet potatoes, the roselle, and the peanuts to keep going until they completely die out on their own or they get hit by the first frost. We're gonna have a very interesting mix of hot, warm, and cold weather plants in the garden this fall. September is a great month because this is the month that we officially ramp up our fall plantings. We started some of our warm weather plants last month, like tomatoes, peppers, beans, and squash. But this month, we're gonna start seeds for the traditional cool weather vegetables we all know and love, and I'm just so excited. I cannot say this enough. This is my favorite time of year here in Florida. So let's start with what can be planted from seed this month. So let's start out with our red beets, red, golden, yellow beets, all of those. Something like the Detroit Wonder is a good variety. Broccoli. So there's a lot of different varieties. My favorite is Arcadia, but Waltham is still pretty good. Decesio is another really good one. Brussels sprouts. Traditionally, Long Island is the one that is grown, but I really like the Jade Cross. Cabbage. I really like the New Jersey early Wakefield cabbage, but the acre one grows really well, red or green. Then there's a bunch of Chinese cabbages, like I think Tokyo Beckenol falls into that group of Chinese cabbages. Carrots, New Kurudo, I think is how it's pronounced, is a really good one. Purple Elite works well, and then of course just your regular Danvers. Cauliflower, there's the Snowball and Snowball Improved, which both do really well down here. Collards, and you cannot go wrong with the Georgia Southern collard. Cucumbers, there's a wide variety of cucumbers that can grow down here, so I particularly like the Sweet Success or something like the Boston pickling cucumber. Green beans, there is Blue Lake bush beans as well as Provider green beans. Both do really well down here. Next up is kale, and you can grow pretty much all varieties, but the best ones are lacinato, red Russian, and then of course your curly kale. Karobi, the ones I've used are the Vienna, but I'm going to be trying a couple new ones this year. Lettuce, you can grow lots and lots of different kinds of lettuce, but Paris Island romaine is a pretty good heat tolerant lettuce, as well as something like Jericho. Then there's your mustards. So this is going to be something like a Chijimisai, or you could just do your traditional mustard varieties. There's even some that originate from down here in Florida. Then you have your peas. This is your sugar snap peas as well as your shelling peas, and there's lots of different varieties. The ones that I've liked the most are the super sugar snap peas, or the sugar daddy peas. Then you have radishes. I've grown a watermelon radish before, and those have done pretty well this time of year. Summer squash, early prolific straight neck yellow squash is a winner down here, although I have been growing lots of different patty pan squashes. Swiss chard, pretty much any variety, the rainbow, the red ruby, all of those grow really well. And then your turnips. If your area is still pretty hot at night, say higher than mid 70s, you may want to wait one more month since they will probably take to the ground a little bit better. It's actually okay at this point if it's still hot during the day when these plants are young, but they really need those cooler breaks at night. You can also keep starting seeds for the warm season crops like tomatoes, peppers, winter squash, bean, corn, onions, and eggplants. If you are starting onions from seed, make sure to get those started this month. You really want them to be ready to transplant by late October, early November. So make sure to get them going now. Another really cool one you can start is strawberries. I have a bed where my strawberries lived last year, but the watermelon really choked them out, and honestly, I have just struggled with them in that bed. Lots of bugs and worms eating them no matter what I did. So last year I got some new plants in and I planted them in my flower bed near my fruit trees in hopes that there will be less bug activity there. They did amazing last year with almost no bug damage, and the berries were bigger and sweeter and produced longer. They also really did well through the summer, which was very surprising. Usually strawberry plants here in Florida don't do well in the summer. That's why a lot of people growing strawberries as annuals here in Florida, but I have always grown them as perennials. Needless to say, I'm very happy I decided to move them because they just seem to love this spot better. I still have my eye on growing them in the green stock, but I haven't pulled the trigger on that yet. I will, and you guys will be there for it. Now let's jump right into the projects for the month. As I mentioned, I'm going to start cutting down a bunch of my summer plants. Specifically, I'm taking out the Thai soldier beans, then the cowpeas, and then the lima beans are just about done. The okra plants are pretty spent at this point, and my some hemp cover crop, all that's going to come down. Besides like the okra, all these plants that I mentioned are great plants to add nitrogen and biomass back to your bed. So once you harvest everything that you can, cut them off at the base of the soil, chop the plants up, and toss them right into your bed. No composting is needed, especially the sun hemp, which is used for this exact purpose. I grew so much of these in this bed so I can use them to fill some of my other beds. I had this idea in my head that one day I will cover crop every single bed with sun hemp and allow the beds to rest for the entire summer. But I just can't help myself. There are always so many crazy summer varieties of vegetables that I want to try out, so that never seems to happen. But I am proud of myself that I did cover crop several beds with various plants this year. I guess there's always next year. But we're looking forward to fall, so that means we need to get back on track with succession planting. I normally don't succession plant all summer long, and usually my warm weather crops are more like a one and done planting, but now that we're moving into the cool weather crops, you need to restart this process. I started doing something last spring and it worked out really well for me, so I wanted to share it with you in case this process helps you remember to do your succession planting. The way I do it is I start my first round of plants in trays. Once that round gets at least 2 to 4 true leaves, I transplant them into the bed, and then I immediately fill that same tray up with soil and the same exact plant. I don't even wash them out or anything. I just fill them up, get the seed starting mix wet, and drop some seeds in. If I'm diligent on doing this every single time I transplant into the garden, I never miss any succession plantings, and the harvests come in a much more spread out way, not like all at once. This is especially helpful for veggies that don't have the best options for preserving. I'm thinking of things like cauliflower and broccoli. You can freeze them, but I don't really like to eat them this way. I like to eat them fresh. Last year I did okay, but there was a month where we were eating so much broccoli, it was overwhelming. And that was because I didn't really succession plant correctly. I planted 12 plants and then I planted another 12 plants halfway through the season. Now, if I was only harvesting the main head, that probably would have been okay, but instead I was harvesting so many side shoots along with the second succession of all the main heads. It was crazy. So this year I'm doing 3 plants at a time. Once those 3 go in the bed, I'll start 3 more in the trays, and so on and so on. This should hopefully produce a steady stream of broccoli without taking up so much room in my garden from so many plants. I'm going to be trying that out and see if that works better for me this fall. The next big project I'm going to be doing this month is planting my seed white potatoes. Last year was a tough year for me with white potatoes. It was really, really rough, but it was a really great learning experience for me. The biggest thing I learned is do not cut your potatoes. Don't do it. Let me preface this though. If you live in a temperate climate with normal rainfall, go for it. I hear it works great there. But down here where it's hot, wet, and humid, not a good plan. I cut all my potatoes last fall, allowed them to scab over, waited for several dry days, and did all the right steps for planting. I'll put the video down in the description where I did it, but they all rotted in the ground. We got a huge storms and then a hurricane and they never sprouted. I went digging for them and they were just gone. I thought an animal might have come and dug them out, but that seemed unlikely because all of them were gone. I quickly learned that all that wet weather made the cut potatoes rot super easy. So from now on, I'm planting my potatoes whole. In spring, I planted them whole and the plants did very well. The funny thing was that when I dug them all up, all the seed potatoes were completely rotted and slimy. So even whole potatoes do break down super fast down here. But at least it's slower to allow the plant to get started and growing before it rots away. Now let's get into the special tip for the month. September is a perfect month to get your soft-necked and Creole seed garlic shipped to you. I have a new favorite place to get my seed garlic from, and that is Garlic Gods. I had a great experience with them last year, so I strongly encourage you to check them out. Their garlic does not come pre-vernalized, so you will need to get them in the fridge to start the vernalization process as soon as you receive them. They need a minimum of 6 weeks in the refrigerator, but 12 would be best. That means they go into the fridge this month in time to be planted by late November or early December. I like to wait to plant them until we get our first decent cold front. Garlic can be tricky to grow here, but it is completely possible. Check out the video in the description below of when I planted them last year. They did super good, so you definitely want to watch that video next. So I'm going to pop that up right here. You guys take a look at that between now and my next upload and feel free to ask any questions. Happy gardening, guys!